in this video, we are going to complete the third section of our website. So, and it's going to be a simple section for us, okay? We've just got some text here, and then we're going to be working with an image here. And we're going to add this sweet line. So let's hop into it. Go ahead and open up your text editor. And so we've built these three columns, and we're going to start a new container underneath all of this, all right? So right under here, the first thing we're going to do is we're actually not going to build the container yet. We're going to add this HR tag. And this HR tag in HTML5, it's kind of like a thematic break, all right? And what that does is it just adds that simple line to our page to help separate content. All right, so there's our line. That was easy. And let's build our container. So let's add the class of container. And then inside of this, we saw that we had two columns here, okay? Now, I want to get a little bit crazy with our columns. We've been doing all these even columns here, like the column width of 4, which breaks into 3 even sections, the column width of 6, which builds 2 columns of 50%. I'm going to go wild, and I'm going to create a column class of 7. Oh my gosh, we're doing something different. That's crazy. All right, so in this first column, we want to add that group of text, all right? So we're going to add something a little bit different here. We're going to add a HTML semantic called article, and inside of this, we're going to nest a paragraph tag. Now, let me tell you what the article does. So when we are working with articles, the type of text and information that we should be putting in there is anything like a blog post or a comment or like a news article, things like that. It's built to put article type of material in there, okay? And then the reason why I'm throwing this paragraph tag in here is the paragraph tags automatically add default margins to the top and bottom of my text, okay? And the article is really cool. It's like a container of itself. So again, this is going to build in like a block element for us. So for an example, if I created another article, it's going to stack one underneath the other here. So let's put some dummy text inside of this. And what we're going to do is just come up here and grab this lorem ipsum dummy text here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to come inside of my paragraph tag here. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to paste it again. And I'm going to go a little bit more nuts. Boom, I'm going to paste it 3 times. I want to have this article have some content to it because it's really important, right? It's talking about lorem ipsum here. All right, sweet. So I've gone ahead and added that. Let's launch this with the lightning bolt over here and see how it looks. Loading up, scrolling down. And we've got this text, and it's coming all the way over here. That's fantastic. That's great. What we want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to make this text a little bit bigger, and we can see that it's hugging the left side of the screen. And I want to move it out some. So let's go ahead back to our text editor, and where our defaults are, right under our standard paragraph text, let's go ahead and grab our new styling that we want to do. And so I'm going to grab the article element. I spelled that goofy. And then we're going to grab the paragraph tag inside of it. And we know we want our font size to be bigger. I'll probably make this a font size of 35 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see. This is our website here. All right, that looks good enough for me. All right, and then we want to add some padding around this, and so I'm going to give it a padding of, let's do like 10 pixels. All right, I'm going to do Command Tab to toggle back, refresh, and that gives a little bit of space here, but I want more padding. I don't want it so close. I'm actually going to go ahead and double this. All right, that is good for me. I like the way that looks. And the reason why I didn't do a margin, the reason why I added a padding instead, is because if we were to add a margin specifically to this paragraph, it is going to push away from this left side here, and it's going to try running into the right column that we're going to be adding here, because we're taking the paragraph element and we're trying to force space outside of it. Whereas when we use padding, it takes the element and it keeps it the same size, and it just kind of increases the space around it without like forcing space and messing up our columns. All right, so there is one thing that I want to show you here, and this is cool. We're going to go ahead and inspect our element. All right, scroll down so we can see our text. And again, I'm going to right click on this and hit inspect. That way in my inspector down here, it takes me directly to my inspect element here. All right, so let's look at what's going on here. So the orange up there that you saw, the orange is a margin, the green is a padding, the blue is our element. So we can come over here, and here is the elements that we've selected. You can see our font size of 35 and the padding of 20. But I want you to notice something. See the paragraph tag over here? It is inheriting the line height of 1.2. So I want you to look at the sentence right here at the top, and then the one below it, and check out the space that's between it. When I come here and I unselect or deselect the line height here, you can see that these sentences sucked closer together. So we grabbed the specific article and paragraph tag. We added some specific stylings. You can see that we overwrote the font size for the paragraph tag of 28 and changed it to 35. We added padding to it, but because we're still using a paragraph tag here, it's inherited the line height of the other one. All right, so that's just something I wanted to show you. It is very important as you're building and styling your website with CSS that you're constantly inspecting the element and looking at what classes are being inherited or which ones might be overriding one another. All right, so that was pretty simple. We just did the first column. Let's go ahead and add the second. I'm going to close out of this. I'm actually going to close out of the entire browser here because when we inspect the element, we lose our connection. All right, so that was easy. We added this first article, and let's go outside of our column. Go ahead and press enter, and let's create the second column here. All right, so we're going to give it a div class of 7 plus what equals 12? You are so smart. It's 5. Okay, cool. So this is where we're going to place our image, and I'm going to create just a div tag right now because it's always good to nest our specific elements inside of a div tag here, and this is where we're going to place our image. So go ahead and we'll type in image. We're going to give it a source, and if you haven't already, download the icon that I've included in this lesson, and it's iOS slope PNG. All right, and again, like we did last time with the other icon we worked with, this icon was originally like 3,000 by like 2,000 pixels or something. It was huge. And what I did is I resized the image and made it, I think it was like a 500 width and maybe a 200 or 300 height or something. So that way I'm not working with such a large file, and the browser is going to be able to load this file a lot faster. Okay, so size your images how big you want it to be on your website. All right, so we've got this in here. Now, let's just, for fun, go ahead and preview this. I'm going to hit the lightning bolt up here. All right, let's scroll down. And our image is stacking underneath our text here. So let's play with this image just a little bit so we can make sure that it gets over here in the column that it's supposed to be in. So go ahead and head over to your text editor here. And what I want to do is I want to look at the structure of this HTML that we've built here, because I know that this image is supposed to be displaying to the right of this text because we have two columns that add up perfectly to 12. 7 plus 5 is 12. So let's start from the beginning of this new section that we started building. All right. So we've got our header tag. That's great. That's just building a line for us. We've created our container, which is going to hold all the content of this new section. And as we move down, we see that we've got a column of 7. But wait a minute. What are columns supposed to be placed in? Columns are always structured inside of a row. All right, so we're missing the row to keep the structure of our columns. Because if we come over to the styles here, we have set specific rules to these rows that keep these columns in line. So right under our container, just go ahead and press enter, and we've got to create a row here. All right, div class of row. Awesome. And then what we're going to do is just go ahead and cut this tag, come down to the very, very bottom, and we're going to paste it and make sure you backspace that to keep everything in line so you can see that we've got our container and the next div tag in is our row. So let's go ahead and save that and relaunch this. I'm going to kill that one there. And now let's look what we have going on. Well, there we go. That was so easy. Now we've got our column lining up correctly because we structured everything in a row. So let's continue working with our image element here. So back to our text editor. We know that we want to interact specifically with this image. And I could do that by specifically grabbing the image tag here. But that means if I grab this specifically, I'm going to be adding the same style to every image that I have on this page. And I don't want that to happen. So in our div wrapper here, let's create a class. And I'm going to go ahead and name this slope icon. All right, very cool. Now let's go find a spot to place this. Let's set it right underneath our box. All right, so let's grab the div tag with our element slope icon. And let's add some properties to this. Okay, so I want to make this element easy to work with and to place. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this in a display of block. All right, and we know, let me go back here. We can see that we have got a lot of extra margin. We've got a lot of extra space to the right of our image, okay? So I'm going to come back to my text editor. And we've been using a specific property to take care of this for us. And you already know what it is. It's a margin of auto because it's going to take all the extra space in this element and it's going to distribute it evenly to center our image for us. So let's come back to this. I'm going to refresh it and it's still not moving. So there's something else that we've got to add here to help us out and get this to work. So let's come back to our text editor and let's figure that out. Well, it looks like I forgot a semicolon. Let's go ahead and add that and toggle back over here, refresh, and it's still being stubborn. So we're going to come back now. As we think about this, we're trying to center our image. So let's think about the class that we're grabbing. So I've grabbed the wrapper for our image. And I'm trying to put a display of block and auto on it, but that doesn't really make sense to say, hey, I want to just center a div tag here. We've got to go and grab the child element that we're actually trying to work with. We never added that. So grab the image here, go ahead and save that. So now we've grabbed the parent and we're saying, hey, take this child of this parent class. Now let's add the display block and the margin auto, okay? We're targeting our image specifically. And there we go. So just a little bit of problem solving and things like that are going to happen and it's okay to make those kind of mistakes, but it's always important to go back to your project and kind of just take a step back and look at exactly what kind of elements that you're trying to work with here. So this is great. Let's go ahead and add that shadowing around the box because this white, it's bleeding into our white background, and we don't want that to happen. So let's come back to this, and let's add some more styling to this here. So let's add the shadow, and we already used that on our box. Do you remember? Just above, I cannot type. Let's grab our box shadow, and instead of doing the same thing here, let's do something a little bit different. So I want the horizontal side to side. I want the horizontal alignment of my shadow to be, let's do like -2 pixels. That is not a negative. This is a negative, -2 pixels. All right, and let's make the vertical length -2 pixels. So what I'm doing here is by adding this negative number, I'm saying pull this to the left and pull it up, okay? Positive numbers go to the right and they go down. And you'll see on this box shadow that we did, we weren't adding any pixels. I wasn't saying 0 pixels. When you're giving a value of 0, you don't need to add any pixels, okay? The browser knows what to do with it. It's just like, dude, this is 0, it's nothing. But when we want a specific number, you have to make sure that you add these pixels. All right, and then the next one, this is our blur. And this time, why don't we go a little bit fancy and add 5 pixels of blur? And then the radius, let's just put this out just a little bit and do 2 pixels here. And what I'm gonna do for you is I'm gonna go ahead and comment what we're working with so you can remember. So this first one, remember, we're working with horizontal. The second one we're working with is the vertical length. This third number that we're working with, this is the control of the blur. All right, and then the last one that we're working with, this is the spread. So I'm gonna put an S there. So now you know the order that this goes in: the horizontal, the vertical, the blur, and the spread. Now let's go ahead and add our color to it. RGBA. Parentheses, we'll just end that like this. And I actually want to put the same exact shading that we were using before. And I'm going to add a 0. And I'm going to comment this out for you. So if you remember, the first number, when working with these transparent colors, the first one is the shadow, okay? So we're setting that to 0. And I'm going to comment this here. So by default, shadows are already black. So this is the shadow that we're working with. And you have to have a comma when you're working with these colors. I'm going to go ahead and place this inside of the comma. The next number that we work with is the background color. And I don't need a background color because I have an image. Okay, so I'm going to make a note here. So this is the background. All right, and then the next number that we're working with in this RGBA, this is going to be the box color. All right, so we don't need a box color because, again, we have an image here. And I'm just going to put BX for the box. And then make sure that we have our comma here. And then the last number in this determines the opacity. All right, and I'm going to use the same opacity of 0.15. And then I'll comment this out, and this is the opacity right here. All right, so I gave you these comments, so look at them, study them, so you can remember how these box shadows work. And I want to do the same thing, similar to what we did up here. I want to add a second shadow to kind of add some more cool styling to the background of this image. So let's come here. This is going a little bit crazy on me. And we're going to add a comma so we can add an additional styling. This time, how about we do a positive 2 pixels? So this way now we're going down. And then let's do another 2 pixels. So this is going to push it to the right. And then let's add a blur of, let's do like 4 pixels, just a little bit less. And then we'll do a spread of the same 2 pixels. All right, and then we'll go ahead and add our colors here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a 0, 0, 0, and I want to, put the transparency a little bit harder, not so light, so I'm going to add a 1 in there. All right, so let's check that out. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and launch this again, make sure I've got my connection and everything's working. Let's come down here. And interesting, our box shadow is not showing up. So let's come back to our text editor and see if there was something we weren't being specific enough with. All right, so checking out the box shadow here. I was putting a bunch of comments in here. Heavens forbid. There it is. See how we've got commas on all of these? I forgot a comma. And things like that, they'll break the entire style rule. So I think that should fix everything. Let's go ahead and come back here. There it is. All right, so our blur is a little bit hard. Let's try to lighten that up a little bit. Let's go ahead and add a 10 here on the blur. And let's add like a 7 for fun. Let's come here and refresh. Oh, I opened up a new tab. That was weird. Refresh here. And it's still pretty hard. I'm going to go ahead and just bump this up to a 20 and might as well make that like 17. All right, that's right? We've got our horizontal, vertical, blur, and spread. That's right. All right, let's come back. There we go. I like that. That looks a lot better. It's not so hard. It's a little bit softer of a blur. So that completes this for desktop. Now let's go ahead and make sure that this is mobile compatible. All right, so I'm going to grab this and we're going to shrink this down a little bit and see what happens. All right, so yeah, this is getting messed up again. So let's, just like before, let's do the same thing and take these columns and put them in a width of 100% when it hits its mobile state. All right, so I'm going to come down here. Let's go to our media query. And we've got these other columns that we've added in here, right? So why don't we go ahead and just add the other ones? So I'm going to grab the column class of 7 and then make sure you add your comma. We learned that broke our stuff last time in our box shadow. And then we're using a column of 5 over here. Put our comma. And we'll save that. And then let's come back to this. There we go. So the content is stacking on each other, which is great. This text obviously is way too big. And then if we look over here, check this out. Our image is overflowing into just off the page here. So let's go ahead and start with the text and fix that. While inside of this media query, why don't we just come right underneath this header here to kind of keep our fonts and our texts together and grab the parent element and its child, and let's change a new font size when it hits a mobile state. I believe the original font size we set was 35 pixels, so why don't we reduce it by 10 pixels and set a pixel width of 25 here. All right, and I'm just going to kill this and relaunch just to make sure these styles take place. Go ahead and launch that. Oops, I'm in a mobile state here. Oh, that's what I want to be in, right? I forgot. All right, so let's scroll down and cool. I like that. This looks good. That is a great size. All right, so let's work with our image now. We've got this image and it's overflowing outside of the column that it's supposed to be in. All right, so let's come and grab the image here. And we'll do this right underneath the box. So what I'm going to do first is grab the parent and then grab the class, the slope icon. All right, and then inside of this, we could put a width of 100%. All right, so we're doing the same thing. So we changed these columns to be 100%. Now we're saying, hey, we want to take the image here and give that a width of 100%. So let's go ahead and check that out. Refresh. Oh my word, it's still not working. So let's come back to our class and take a better look at this. So what I'm saying here is I want the parent, the slope icon, to have a width of 100%. But wait a minute, do we want the parent to have a width of 100%? Or do we want the child, which is the actual image, to have a width of 100%? I would say we want the actual image. All right, so go ahead and throw in the image there. Save that. Let's come back to the browser. Refresh, and perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to happen. This has a width now of 100%. Our image is locked into our column. It's hugging the edges here, and I want to give it some space. I don't like the way that this looks. So let's look at the class that we just added these style rules to. So we have an image with a width of 100%, so we directly targeted the child we wanted to. What do you think would happen if we added a margin of like 10 pixels to this? All right, let me add a space here. So now we're saying I want a margin of 10 pixels on my image element. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense. We want some space around it, but let's see what really happens here. It's now giving me an overflow. I'm scrolling to the side and we've added 10 pixels of margin around this. So do I want 10 pixels around the image? Well, it doesn't look like that's exactly what I want. So let's delete that. So we're telling our image to take 100% width of our column. All right, well, let's go up a level and just grab the parent here. All right, slope icon. All right, so now we're grabbing the parent and let's add a margin of 10 pixels here. All right, let's see how that looks. Okay, perfect, that's working now. Now let's talk about what happened here. All right, so we wanted our image to take 100% width of our column, and when we added that margin to it, it just took the image and it forced it around weird. All right, it's actually the same concept that would have happened if we put that margin on the text over here, right? Because we're putting a margin on a specific element inside of a column and we're trying to force space around it. That's not what we want to happen. What we want to happen is have the wrapper, this slope icon. We want to add a margin to that, which will add the 10 pixels, but it's still going to tell our image to take 100% width of whatever that is. So I hope that makes sense. That was a lot of explaining, but that's how it works. So this looks great. Everything looks great on mobile and everything looks great on desktop. So let's wrap this up and move on to building the last section of this website. Moving on.